Hey everybody, Stinger here. I want to invite you to a pretty cool podcast.
Watch this film. It'll be quite nice. Have a good time. It'll be very evil. And you'll love that Danhausen.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Yes, it is I, Big E, but more importantly, it is you.
And you might remember me from such YouTube greats as Being the Elite and Chris Daniels Almost Dies.
And if you're looking for the very best wrestling content, you better come to Good Mic Work Commentary.
And I'm just going to tell you now, as a role model, you got to tune into this because if you also want to be a role model, you got to learn from the best.
We have a rapport, and we have been so close over so many years. This is not a cameo or a paid endorsement in any regard. This is a message of friendship.
Man, we met 20 years ago, 21 years ago now. Time is flying, isn't it?
I want to wish you all the best in your YouTube channel, and hopefully I can maybe make a special guest appearance on there sometime.
And I used to say, hey, Greg Morgan, and he used to say, please call me Greg, and I wouldn't do it.
Good mic work. Commentaries.
Awesome YouTube channel. Now, if you've seen these videos before, you know what I'm talking about.
We would do verbal chain wrestling. You know, we'd be off in the yard, the schoolyard at recess.
And he's also a 40-year-old wrestling fan. That's a long damn time.
And we'd just be staring at each other, and he'd say, hammerlock. And I'd say, all right, I've reversed the hammerlock into a hammerlock of my own, then I put you in a headlock. And, you know, that would go on for hours.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Raw, SmackDown, NXT. This guy covers it all, my friends. I want you to go to his page, Good Mic Work on YouTube.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
But we would have fun. We would run around. There would be a wooden hoop we would hit with a stick, and it would go down a hill.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
It's a very practical apparatus.
We're really lacking in the world right now with some people that have a freaking brain cells.
And now look at him. He has more YouTube views and subscribers than I do, and I'm fine with it because I played such an integral role in his upbringing.
Don't you dare be sour.
We always talked about wrestling. He was a big Lou Thez guy, and of course I had an affectation for the Hackenschmidts.
Clap for Good Mic Work Commentaries.
This is RJ City, a wrestling rock on tour.
And feel the power.
Listen to the podcast, subscribe.
You are watching Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good mic work commentaries.
Just want to encourage all you guys to check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And if you don't, we're gonna have a problem.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it now!
Thanks a lot for the encomium and the nice words about my father's Hall of Fame induction.
Hope our paths cross again sometime down the road. Would love to shake your hand again, and good luck on this podcast.
And you don't just watch it one time. You can rewatch every single one of them.
And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
What is going on, everyone? Happy Saturday. My God, it feels great to finally be back for a podcast. Here we are with your Winged Eagle podcast for May 7th, 2022. I have been taking a little bit easy on the content since WrestleMania in terms of the podcasts and stuff because we're going through that post-WrestleMania hangover. Wrestling has been a little bit boring in the last few weeks, not a lot of news going around, so I've been pretty much limiting the content on the channel since WrestleMania to watch-alongs. I think I did a Raw review and maybe a news episode or something in the last couple of weeks, but we've laid off of the podcast just because there hasn't been enough material to really, drive a 2-hour episode. However, that all changes today because holy crap, my notes are literally overflowing. We have a lot to catch up on. We have a lot on the menu today, and it's going to be very, very news-heavy. There's so much news to get into and some of the stuff that I missed over the past week or so that we're not going to have really a time to deep dive everything here, but we're definitely going to get into things like our friend Sonny, of course. We're going to get into WWE's Q1 earnings call, which, as usual, they have touted some record profits. No surprises there. We're going to talk about AEW Forbidden Door. We're going to talk about a new upcoming AEW television show. We're going to talk a little bit about Tessa Blanchard's falling out with WoW. Big E has provided a little bit of a discouraging injury update, so we want to wish him the best. I also want to discuss all of the NXT releases that we went through about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago now. Dakota Kai, Malcolm Bivens, and a few other big names are now gone. We'll discuss a little bit of that. Ember Moon, a.k.a. Athena, was also a guest on the Chris Van Vliet show, where she did chronicle and discuss a lot of details regarding her release and her final days in WWE, which was pretty interesting. We'll get into a little bit of that as well. Also, some rumors on Dark Side of the Ring. It may or may not be canceled. We still don't know. Cody Rhodes was a guest on Broken Skull Sessions this week. It aired, I believe, yesterday. I have not watched that yet, but at least want to mention that and find out if any of you have seen it yet as well. And we're going to backtrack a little bit and talk about this past week's Dynamite, because I was not here to do a watch along on Wednesday for that, and we did see a couple of cool things go down, like the return of W. Morrissey in a match with Wardlow, and also Hangman Page's promo took an interesting turn, and we finally have the brackets for the men and women's Owen Cup tournament set. We're going to take a look at those a little bit later on as well. We will also discuss last night's Rampage briefly, take a look back quickly at this past week's Monday Night Raw. We are not going to talk much about SmackDown because I have so much going on in my notes here, and we are going to predict Backlash at the end of the podcast here, that I did not watch SmackDown last night. The only thing that I saw was Lacey Evans' Chapter 5, which did end in a very strange way. Not sure what the hell they were doing when she came out to the crowd like that, but I did see that, have a few thoughts on it, and then, of course, we will predict all, I believe, only 6 matches set up for Backlash tomorrow, unless they add something on the kickoff or they toss us one more last minute. But all I have written down, according to WWE.com, is 6 matches, and we're going to predict all of those. And, of course, tomorrow night, immediately following Backlash, you're going to get me up here talking about the entire pay-per-view. So we'll be up here for a review tomorrow night. So we're going to backtrack a bit. Just wanted to let you know what's going to be on tap here. I want to shout out everybody here in the chat, knock out these super chats, say hi to the Patreon subscribers, and let you guys know what to expect for the rest of the week. Most likely, I probably will be up here for a Raw review on Monday as well. Dynamite this Wednesday, watch along is up in the air. Not sure if that's happening yet or not, but Dynamite card looks stacked, especially with that Owen Hart first rounder between Jeff Hardy and Darby Allin. Wow, that's going to be fun. So lots to get into. Like I said, expect me for a good 2 hours here. We will probably finish up right as Impact Under Siege begins. So for those of you who are Impact fans, I'm sure you're going to be checking out the pay-per-view tonight. I got to head off to work as soon as this podcast is done, so I will not be watching it. But if you are an Impact fan, I hope the show is good. Apparently the card looks pretty stacked and should be fun for a lot of you Impactors out there. Also, I believe today is also the Kentucky Derby, if that's correct. So that's going on. All sorts of shit going on. So if you are here today with us, I appreciate you being here. Please subscribe. Smash that thumbs up button for me if you don't mind. And make sure you're here tomorrow for a Backlash review. I will have the link to tomorrow's stream posted later on tonight, as well as the audio of this podcast. You can catch it wherever podcasts are found over on my website as well. You can download the MP3 over there if you'd like. So let me cruise over here to the chat. Say hello to those of you who've been waiting for us already, hanging out. And I want to make sure I can be heard. All right, sound check. We all look good, good, and good. I'm also going to need some recommendations on 1 week from tomorrow. We need to do a watch-along, classic pay-per-view watch-along. I'd like to keep it limited to a May pay-per-view of some kind, so we can do anything that's available on Peacock. Judgment Days, no Over the Edge 98, because I'm doing a review on Over the Edge 98 this month, but any other, classic pay-per-view, memorable pay-per-view that came out in May, besides Judgment Day 2000, Kevin, which I will do a review on that. I'm going to thank you in a minute. Let me know some suggestions there, and we'll try to figure out one to do next Sunday. And then in the month of June, we're going to do some King of the Rings, maybe some Bad Bloods, stuff like that. It's going to be fun. But first and foremost, let me say hi to Jay Lambo Tatanani. Lil Justin Rodrigo is in here. We've got Chaz, Zane G, Randy Peace. And I want to say a special hello and shout out to K-Dog's Kennel, Kevin, who is here with a very generous $75 drop. This is my anniversary present. Well, I guess that's an anniversary present to me. We did pass 12 years on the channel here last month. Thank you very much for that, Kevin. She knows the respect Oh, maybe it's your anniversary. She knows the respect I have for you, so I figured I'd ask for a review of Judgment Day 2000. Rock Triple H in an Iron Man match, plus Taker returns as the American Badass. Thank you for all you do, good sir. I will put that one on the list, Kevin. Consider it done. We will do a Judgment Day 2000 review here next month, and I'm glad to do a review of that rather than a watch-along, because a lot of people have recommended that one in watch-along form, but whenever you have it's like WrestleMania 12. Whenever you have an Iron Man match, that's going to take up over a third of your pay-per-view. We're just going to be sitting here talking about our favorite types of cheeseburgers and shit throughout the whole match if we do a watch-along. So a review is much better for a show like that. Kevin, appreciate that very much. It's on the list. We'll bust that out in May or June. But I have a Patreon-sponsored review coming up in just a couple of weeks ahead of Double or Nothing, Over the Edge 1998, headlined by Austin and Dude Love. Great fucking pay-per-view. We did a watch-along of Unforgiven 98 just last Sunday. I attended that show in Greensboro along with Ezekiel and his brother Elias, apparently. Saw that video up on WWE's YouTube channel. So we were all there together, the three of us. And it was a fun night of Inferno matches and Austin McMahon and Double J's and all sorts of crazy shit. So we are going to look at the pay-per-view after that here in a couple of weeks, Over the Edge, which was a really, really good show. So thank you for that, Kevin. Appreciate it. Glad you're here. Kevin's been dealing with some health updates as well, but he's a fighter, kicking ass, and we are all pulling for you hard, my friend, and thank you very much for your very generous donation. Also, Michael Cuomo is in the house, along with Deshaun Robinson and Jet the Hawk and Diet Water. So we got monkey wrench parties going on. We got Rarely Even, Rodrigo, I might have gotten you. David Brown as well. Good to see you. Joshua, Andy, Matos, and George Morris is here with the $5. Thank you, dude. Good to see you and welcome back. Hey, Greg, how are you doing? Cobra Kai Season 5, September 9th. Do you think Sonny's life is over? How is Bub? WrestleMania Backlash looks very boring. I kind of agree, man. The only thing I'm holding out hope with tomorrow is that we've all been kind of rolling our eyes at this six-man match, and you know how I like to be on this channel. I am a silver lining type of guy, and the only thing I can think of for tomorrow is that WWE just didn't want to rush McIntyre and Roman. I thought they were going to go in the direction of Shinsuke Nakamura, and they went away from that. Now it looked like they were heading towards Drew, and then they just scrapped the whole title unification tag team match completely and made the whole thing a six-man. The only thing I can think of, and match placement tomorrow is going to be a big indicator here, because I believe that if Roman's not defending the title, this six-man match should just open the show, and Charlotte and Ronda should main event, because it's an I Quit match. I'm expecting a new champion tomorrow, so I feel like that should go on last. However, if it doesn't, and this six-man match still goes on as the main event, look for Drew to pin Roman. I would not be surprised at all because I don't think Drew McIntyre is going to be the guy to beat Roman Reigns for the title. But, you still want to throw McIntyre a little bit of a bone. So you do a reverse international incident. Don't give me any of that, Roman shouldn't be pinned stuff. You can do it in a six-man. His boys, his Usos can fuck up, leave him in the ring alone to get triple teamed and pinned. It's not a big deal. You can do it. Happened to Shawn. Right after he won the title at WrestleMania 12, Vader pinned him in an international incident in the six-man that led to their SummerSlam match. So I think that you could do the same thing here with McIntyre. Roman being pinned for the first time in over 2 years would be a big story. And of course, WWE has booked it in a non-title match and a tag team match, so Roman's title run is safe, and it makes Drew even that much more of a stronger opponent heading into whatever they do, either at Hell in the Cell or Money in the Bank or whatever one-on-one match these two have. Suppose you could stretch it to SummerSlam, but I doubt it. So if you give McIntyre the quick win here, when the title match happens, Roman will probably beat him and continue on his run. But it also puts a nice feather in the cap of Drew McIntyre as the only guy to beat Roman Reigns as this new tribal chief heel that he's been. So I think tomorrow there's a chance Roman's going to get his big dog shoulders pinned to the mat, but we'll go through our exact predictions here later on. Cobra Kai trailer did get released. September 9th is the date on that. Props to the cast and crew there. They filmed and edited and pushed this thing out all within a year, which is incredible. I believe they started filming last September and are already ready to release the season. That's a lot of work to do in post to get that done in just a matter of months, and it looks pretty good. Chosen and Terry Silver face-to-face. My head fucking exploded, so I will be busy on September 9th watching that. Bub, still hanging in there. Appreciate everybody asking about him. Back in February, I was told to put him down because of lymphoma and a fungal infection, but he has responded really well to the medicine, and he is still not going to make it very much longer, but he has been back to his old self for about 3 months now. It's been great. I've been told to expect a decline here quickly, but at least I've gotten this extra time with him, and it's been great. Thank you for all of your well wishes, George Morrison. I'm going to save the Sunny stuff for just a couple of minutes because we're going to be talking about her soon. Barry MK is here as well. I really wish I had time to shout out everybody here, but we got to get into the news, and I don't want to bore y'all to sleep either. C Number Moonsault, thank you for the $4.99. You must eliminate one and their entire career history: John Cena, Undertaker, Lesnar, Rock, Triple H, or Ryback. Oh, that's a tough one. You know, I was never really a fan of that Rock guy. He just had no charisma, and, you know, he wasn't very good. Lesnar, you know, he was just kind of weak. He could never stand up to anybody that was really legitimately tough. So, yeah, I'd probably get rid of everybody and keep Ryback. Yeah, because everybody else is just jabronis, and Ryback's a legend. So, yeah, Ryback, keep. Everybody else, get rid of. I'm kidding. C Number, you know that. Reverse everything I just said. I think that knocks it out for the supers, so I can get moving on the other stuff. And again, thank you to everyone who is here now. Like I said, thumbs up button would be very much appreciated. Let me cruise over here to the Patreon page and just shout out our current subscribers on Patreon. Thank you so much to Chris Broski, who is the sponsor of this month's classic pay-per-view review, Over the Edge, 1998. We're going to be doing that one. I should record that one this week and have it up a week and a half, 2 weeks. So it'll be up before I go to Double or Nothing at the end of the month. Also, I took a COVID test last night. I was feeling a little bit under the weather. I kind of feel a little congested in my head. I'm negative, still don't have COVID, still have never caught COVID, but not feeling myself today. So if I apologize if I cough or sneeze during the podcast here. Also want to thank Divine Ricks, JJ Legg, Nikita Apalakin, Chris Miner, Super Fluffy Toaster, Deshaun Robinson, Martin Can, Apron Bump Podcast. I'm going to be a guest on Apron Bump's podcast, I believe, next month. Correct me if I'm wrong if you're here. Alan Carter, Brandon Yelverton, Nick Musser, Jimmy Anderson, K-Dog's Kennel, Ryan Y, Devlin Husband, who I might be seeing in Hawaii in a couple of months, John Redifer, Claudio Clavedetcher, Reese Jones, Barry, who I might also see, Josiah Blevins, John Riffle, Michael Cuomo, Naveed, Keith Salyers, and Blake Moran. As always, dudes, appreciate your lifetime of support on the Patreon page. You guys are the best. In terms of what we can expect from me this week, I told you guys tomorrow, Backlash review. We'll be up here probably Monday for a Raw review as well. Dynamite Watch Along is up in the air. Up here next Saturday again for a podcast, and looking for a watch along to do next Sunday. So we will decide that this week. Also, want to wish a very, very happy birthday to the late, great Owen Hart, who would have been 57 years old today. And as you guys know, his death was easily the hardest wrestling death I've ever gone through. And I remember every single unpleasant detail of that night watching that pay-per-view when he died. And when you think he would only be 57 today, he's still so fucking young. I mean, it's ridiculous that this happened, 23 years ago. And, he was only 34. And he would only be 57 today with another good, 20, 30, maybe even 40 years ahead of him of life. And it's just frustrating and sad. But today would have been Owen Hart's 57th birthday. In just a couple of weeks, it will be the 23-year anniversary of his death. Did a big podcast on Owen for the 20th anniversary of his death. They kind of put the whole thing to bed because I've been speaking about Owen for about 10 years. So I did one final long podcast on my thoughts on his career, his death, and everything surrounding that. So if you guys have never seen that, it's up on my channel. Just search for Owen Hart. You will see it right there. If you ever want to hear my in-depth, detailed thoughts and opinions on Owen Hart and that whole situation. But considering how much the Hart family, Brett and Owen, meant to me, I am very, very happy and proud as a wrestling fan that I'm going to get to watch the finals of the Owen Cup in person, because I will be at Double or Nothing in Vegas in a few weeks. And that will be a nice moment for me as a fan just to experience and see live. So rest in peace to the King of Hearts. 57 years old he would have been tonight. And like I said, also, Cody Rhodes is the latest guest on Broken Skull Sessions. I knew it was out. We tried to watch it at midnight the night before. It wasn't up yet. And then Elizabeth and I were like, oh, we'll watch it tomorrow night, which would have been last night. And then last night we just fucking forgot. And like right before we were going to bed, I was like, holy shit, we should have watched Cody on Broken Skull Sessions so I could talk about it on the podcast. So we watched like the first 15 minutes, and it was just Cody and Austin talking about the Rolexes. So I have not gotten past the watch discussion of Cody Rhodes on Broken Skull Sessions, but it's about 2 hours long, and I'm sure it's fantastic. So this might be something, because of how much material they're going to cover in this episode. Maybe this can be a standalone video this week. So don't Don't rule out me coming up here for a mic drop and maybe just discussing Cody on Broken Skull Sessions, because I'm really interested to hear this interview. And for those of you who might have already seen it and watched it all the way through, let us know in the chat what you think. I'm really excited to watch that. Now we can start getting into the news, but the news is also going to begin with a This Day in History. I figured before we start getting into some of the gnarly stuff, because Sonny is coming up in here in my notes in just a few minutes, I figured we would start off with a nice little look back at 20 years ago on May 5th. WWE officially became WWE. They got the F out. And we had been hearing about this back in 2002, right around the beginning of the year through WrestleMania, that WWF was running into trouble with those initials. They might be changing the initials, and then I remember seeing it on the website that day, clicking on it, and it just had the F off of the scratch logo. I believe Raw might have been that night or the night after, and that was when Jim Ross welcomed us to WWE Raw, and it felt so weird, and it has now been 2 decades since that change took place, and I think that, you know, for me as a fan who spent, you know, half of my life with the WWF initials and half of my life without, excuse me, I feel like I've now gotten to the point where I say WWE pretty regularly, but I swear it took me about 10 years. I was still saying WWF every now and then by accident, all the way up until my first couple of years doing this podcast and being on YouTube. That's how long it took me to kind of stop saying WWF. So the fact that we have made it 20 years now, WWE feels very easy to say, feels natural. WWE's done a great job, I have to say, making this transition, because it was heartbreaking as a fan like me to not say the WWF anymore, and that coinciding with the WWF really losing its identity. Austin was gone. Rock was gone. The Attitude Era was fizzling away. You had a lot new stars coming in, John Cena's and guys like that coming onto the scene that you had never heard of before or seen. I already felt as a fan at that time that I was losing my WWF. So when you take the F out, now it's WWE, and the product is already starting to look a lot different than what I was used to for the past few years. It was even harder on fans like me, and maybe fans my age, and maybe some of you who were my age can relate to this, that when this change took place, it was a really tough pill to swallow. I know it might sound weird to a young fan that wasn't even born when the WWF initials were around, but for someone like me, you know, just one letter makes a world of difference. And everything changed when WWF changed to WWE. You know, a lot of their content changed. Their format of their TV changed. That was right after that was the brand split, right? That I think the first draft coincided pretty much with this name change. Austin walked out, took his ball and went home just a couple of days or weeks maybe after the WWF changed to WWE. We knew The Rock was off and going to be in Hollywood making movies, probably permanently. He would come back, win the title, drop it to Brock at SummerSlam, but after that, he was pretty much gone, only back for little appearances here or there. And WWE had really changed. It was the Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, and Triple H show. After that, those guys basically dominating the two brands on Mondays and Fridays, or whatever the hell night SmackDown aired back then. And of course, you had the revolving door of GMs on both shows, Stephanie and Eric Bischoff and all sorts of different guys. Ric Flair, Vince McMahon was all a part of that. And things changed so much from the minute they knocked that F off of the initials, and the company has been on a completely different direction ever since then. So for me, in my head as a fan, and for those of you maybe 35, 40 years or older can probably attest to this, there's two WWEs. In my mind, there's the WWF and then there's WWE. They really do, in my heart, feel like two separate companies a lot when I think back to those different time periods and some of the stuff we saw. So the fact that it's been 20 years now, I can't believe how time flies. It's now been that long, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. So happy 20th birthday to WWE. I still can't believe that happened to them. You know, as strong as their legal team is, anytime WWE walks into a courtroom, they very rarely walk out losers. And the fact that they got beat by the Panda Company just cracks me up, but also makes me a bit sad because I wish it never changed. You know, I wish it was still WWF to this day. I really do. But it has now been 20 years since we got the F out, and that's crazy to me. Now we will get into some of the more important wrestling news, and we're going to start with the WWE, who, as usual, during their quarterly earnings call. They did their 2022 quarter one earnings call just the other day to start touting their numbers and their profits, and it was ridiculous. I'm not going to give you every single metric here, but I'm going to let you know a couple of these stats. Number one, their earnings were up 27% from quarter one in 2021 with $333.4 million in earnings. Like I said, that is a 27% increase from this time last year. That's crazy. Their profits were also up a lot. They recorded $66.1 million in profits, which is $23 million up from quarter one of last year as well. So they were up $23 million in profits from last year, which is insane. They also touted a lot of their Peacock numbers. Now, I know for us, Peacock can be very frustrating. It's very difficult to find anything on there. I can find pay-per-views okay because we've been doing the watch-alongs every week, and those are usually all right. But, you know, if you need to find a random episode of Raw or something, apparently it's quite the struggle. I've never really looked that deep or tried to do any of that. But in terms of, you know, from a user standpoint, whenever I look for anything on Peacock, I struggle a lot harder than I did with the WWE Network. And I wasn't crazy about the WWE Network either. I thought that had a lot of problems. And then it got worse with Peacock. However, I'm just going to have to get used to that Peacock because it is going nowhere. And when you look back in hindsight now, that whole idea that Vince McMahon had in his head for years, we always heard about it, that Vince McMahon wanted to create his own WWE network, his own platform where he can make the rules, show anything he wants, run pay-per-views as long as he wants, doesn't have to worry about really anything. And when you look at it now, you know, that was almost, you know, a little bit short-sighted because that's really not where the money is. That's going to cost them a lot of money. When they started the WWE Network, it was very revolutionary. It was a great idea. Excuse me. And it was really great for fans like us. But when you look at, you know, all these streaming platforms now, and then you can just license your shit out for crazy money, that's the way to do it. And so when we think about how frustrating Peacock can be in terms of trying to use the app, you know, the best we can hope for is that just improves because WWE isn't going to move their stuff off of there. They're never going to go back to their old ways of doing the network again. I know there are parts of the country or parts of the world, that still have technically the WWE Network, but that probably won't last very often. You know, whatever country you live in, they're probably going to find a streaming platform over there to sell their shit to. And, you know, a lot of people believe they might even be gearing up to sell the entire company at some point. But you know, they're going to be renegotiating these TV deals and these streaming deals every few years. And I suppose WWE could always move away from Peacock and go to Paramount or Disney or somewhere else. But I think it's safe to say that WWE content from now on is always going to be available on another streaming platform. They're going to negotiate that just like they do TV. And the Peacock numbers were insane. The overall numbers for WWE content during WrestleMania weekend was up 61% from the previous year. That's crazy. Peacock numbers, during Mania weekend was up 61%, and overall WWE content doubled from last year during Mania weekend. It's just, you know, the searches for WWE were a lot larger than last year, and it really shows, you know, what a good move that was financially and exposure-wise for the company because they are up in basically every single metric possible, and that's pretty amazing that it's doing that well on Peacock. But they're going to be there forever. I think WWE is always going to be on a streaming platform that is probably just going to be a little bit difficult to use. So once again, WWE records these record profits. It is always hard to read this stuff and to listen to this stuff days after we see mass releases and the company lets go more and more talent. But that WWE machine is changing, and it's changing a lot, and you can be a perfectly talented individual with the, you know, brightest future of anybody, great potential, and they might just cut you. It's got to be an absolute stress volcano working for that company. And we'll be getting into the NXT releases here in just a minute. Actually, we should probably just do that now since we're on the WWE subject and all of the money they have been making lately. So, week before last, excuse me, like I said, I'm under the weather. Week before last, WWE let go another handful of NXT talent. A lot of it was surprising. Some of it was not. I didn't even come up here and do a video about it because a lot of the names here were ones that we would expect from WWE these days. You know, they are really changing things up. They have been shedding so much talent. They have a complete, philosophy change with NXT. We've seen the changes in NXT since they moved away from the black and gold. And the type of content they're trying to put on Tuesdays. I haven't really watched too much of it. It doesn't much interest me anymore. And but you can definitely easily tell, and it's clear as day, the difference from what it used to be to what it is now. But among the names released, and there was about maybe a dozen or so pieces of talent let go last week, the biggest names were Dakota Kai, Malcolm Bivens, Dexter Loomis, and Harland. Now, Harland is a surprising one because he came in and he was getting all sorts of, publicity due to how he resembled Brock Lesnar. A lot of people thought he looked like Brock Lesnar. I personally did not, but I did recognize that he was a big, strong guy with a lot of tattoos, very menacing looking. And then they, he was Parker Bordeaux or whatever, and they brought him in, made him Harland. It almost felt like they were trying to have Harland take over where Lars Sullivan left off. And, of course, they linked him up with Joe Gacy. A lot of people have been liking what they've been doing on TV, on NXT, and thought that a guy like Harland, as young as he is and the size and presence that he has a huge future. But they let him go due to what has been reported as, not very good progress in his ring work. They haven't liked the progress he made, so they just decided to cut him. Dexter Loomis is another interesting one because he's right in the middle of the Index marriage. He's supposed to be married to Indy Hartwell. Indy is still there, so now they're going to have to explain where Dexter Loomis is. This is another thing that can be so frustrating about WWE releases. They will just release you in the middle of shit, and then they just pretend you never existed or something on TV. I mean, that's a little bit frustrating too to your audience. And when WWE, has an audience full of so many young people, maybe they think young people don't think about this shit or don't care or whatever, but it's weird when they release somebody that is right in the middle of doing an angle. It's not like Dexter's been in catering for the past 6 months. He's there, married to Indy Hartwell. They've been one of the most over acts in NXT over the past several months. Their wedding was so fun, and they just let him go. Okay, well, he's already on the hunt. He'll be back. We'll see him on the independent scene as Samuel Shaw, I believe. Malcolm Bivens and Dakota Kai are two interesting ones because both of them told WWE that they would not be re-signing their contracts when they expired. So they decided to cut Dakota Kai and Malcolm Bivens. Those two don't really bother me because they wanted out. Malcolm Bivens did not want to be there. He even confirmed this on a little stand-up deal he did a few nights back where he said they offered him a contract in February and he turned it down. Said, this is not going to be for me. I'm going to get out of here when my contract is up. So they went ahead and let him go. And Dakota Kai, the same thing. And I love the fact that Dakota Kai made it known to management that she was not going to be sticking around because, again, with Dakota Kai, she sees the writing on the wall. She saw what Ember Moon and she's seen what Shotzi and so many other NXT women who've been moved up to the main roster have gone through, and she doesn't want to be a part of anything like that, the start and stop and all of the day-to-day clusterfuck nonsense that is WWE creative. And she knows that she has value and can be a success somewhere else. Doesn't necessarily have to be in AEW, but she can definitely go elsewhere and find work with no problem. And I'm excited to see where she goes and where she lands because she's an awesome piece of talent. She did great work in NXT the years that she was there. Her heel turn on Tegan Nox was one of my favorite NXT moments ever. So I think Dakota Kai making the decision to leave is so awesome. It makes me happy when talents find themselves in a position to tell the Federation no, that I'm not going to re-sign with you. I'm going to go somewhere else. I love that. So best of luck to Dakota. Best of luck to Malcolm. Best of luck to everybody that got let go in this latest batch of releases. Because a lot of times they're there doing stuff on TV and then they're let go. Your heart goes out to them. But hopefully they will all land on their feet. And when it comes to the women, AEW does need a lot of help still with their women's division. People like Dakota Kai can really help them out. So can Candice LeRae, who apparently her contract is also expired. She is officially a free agent, can go anywhere. So both of the Garganos, man, that entire Wwe faction is gone. Isn't that sad? Gargano and Candice are now gone. Indy is there by herself, and Theory is on the main roster. That was one of my favorite factions in all of NXT, and now it's completely dismantled, and Candice and Johnny are free agents. We'll be excited to see where they land, too. Hopefully one or both can go over to the land of Elite and have some fun over there. And I think other than that, the only other one I wanted to mention was Ember Moon. Now, Ember Moon, in her release, she was a guest on the Chris Van Vliet show, a few days ago, maybe even a week ago now. And I read a good portion of that transcripts and read what she said, and then went on and clicked on a couple of YouTube videos to hear some of this stuff. And when I listened to her, I'm just shaking my head because obviously everybody else has their own story to tell, but what she is saying is so eerily similar to what everybody else says when they leave. And I don't think that she came off as bitter at all. Some people are like, oh, she's just bitter and boo-boo face and entitled. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're listening to, because when she was talking about her experiences and just the hair pulling out frustration that must be the day-to-day goings on in creative in NXT on the main roster, and all of the things that they started with her only to stop, and she laid out all of these different things that they had her doing, the fashion meetings in NXT where they wanted the women to dress a little more scantily clad, and she talked about that. She goes, not everybody wants to dress like Mandy Rose. My character is geared more towards kids. I don't want to come out there with my titties hanging out and stuff. And she was talking about how, writers would come from SmackDown or Raw to NXT. They don't even know the character. They don't even know who they were. In a lot of cases, they didn't even know that they were a tag team with somebody. And then they're the ones put in charge of writing storylines and writing angles for these characters. And then, of course, when Triple H disappeared, nobody really knew why at first. So once he was gone, she was at the mercy of everybody else. And then they told her they were going to change her back to the original Ember Moon, only to stop that. She said she got a rash, and they pulled her from the show because they thought it was something else. And then they asked her to go, work main event against Cora Jade. Then we're going to put you in a tag team with Shotzi, knowing that she doesn't like tag teams. And basically just not having any sort of concrete plans really for anybody. And, she's going to people like Triple H. It's like, oh, we'll work it out together. I don't know what's going on. It's a lot of that same stuff you hear about WCW back in the day. You would hear a lot of the talent after WCW closed its doors talking about how just nobody knew what the fuck was going on ever. And then a decision would be made only to be changed. They'd go out of the way to tell talent they're going to be doing this, only just to change it up or completely forget about it or ignore it the next day. And all of these things that she was talking about in this interview was a lot of the same stuff that we've heard from a lot of talent. A lot of this stuff that she was saying is probably the exact reason why Dakota Kai and Malcolm Bivens and someone like Ali and Roderick Strong and maybe a few others have actually asked the company to let them go. And when you look at all these releases, you look at the NXT releases, and, the Athena release and everything that she talked about, you look at the record profits that they are, touting and all the money that they're bringing in and the crazy revenue. When this company releases the amount of talent that it does, when so many people are considered expendable, when you can be in the middle of an actual fucking angle, when you can be married to another piece of talent in storyline and they're going to let you go, then please explain to me what the possible justification is for not granting the releases of people that have asked to leave, namely Roderick Strong and Ali. Because what does Roderick Strong and Ali really, in the grand scheme of things, in WWE have to offer that some of the talent that was released did not? Are they any more valuable, really, than a Dakota Kai or a Dexter Loomis at the end of the day? I don't think WWE sees them as that. And I think if this company is going to be allowed to release people so willy-nilly, no matter what they're doing, I mean, unless you get in trouble, I swear, of course, like we saw with MSK guy, unless you get into some sort of trouble, I can almost see this company releasing champions, probably because they forget they're a champion or something. So if you're willing to do that, then what is your possible justification for hanging on to someone like Mustafa Ali or Roderick Strong, who have gone to the company and said, I would like to leave. Can I please have my release? And they're going to say no. For what? for spite? What else could it be? What else could it be? So many fans. It's funny to watch the fans, some fans, I should say, contradict themselves for sport on social media, because you do have a lot of the, maybe the WWE defenders. And I've seen people talk so much shit about Ali. Oh, he's not very good. He doesn't move. He's no needle mover. All the podcasters think he can be world champion, but he's not shit. But at the same time, defend WWE's decision to keep him. You're actually defending spite because you yourself have admitted, or you at least think, that he has no value, that he's not a good star. He'll never amount to anything in wrestling. Okay, fine. That's your opinion. Then explain to me why you're okay with WWE keeping him. Just for spite? Are you kidding me? He doesn't want to be there. He wants to leave. He's not going. It's not like he's champion. It's not like he's a former world champion. He's not in an angle with Roman Reigns or Drew McIntyre or anybody else on the roster right now. He's literally doing nothing. So to deny Roderick Strong, for example, his release so he can go to AEW to be with the rest of his friends and his wife, who was also there, to deny him that, to me, that tells me that WWE says to themselves, we don't know what to do with this talent, but we know if he goes somewhere else, they will know what to do with him. So we better keep him here, under our inept foot, because if he goes somewhere goes to a company that actually gives a shit, then he might actually, succeed there. Plus, he's going to be joining all the Undisputed Era, cohorts there as well. But again, even if he did that, WWE was the one that consciously made the decision to move away from that stuff. So what the fuck do they care? What do they care if the Undisputed Era is reunited in AEW? They let half these fuckers go. Adam Cole bounced. They released O'Reilly, right? Oh, maybe his contract was up too. They released Fish. I don't understand why they would even bother to keep him there, just to keep him away from AEW. Roderick Strong has murdered his body over the last 20 plus years. He is a very well-respected veteran who has always done everything that has been asked of him. He gives it 1,000% and literally has broken his back over the years for WWE since he's been in NXT. Out of respect alone, you should grant this guy his release. You should shake his hand. Best of luck. Thank you for all your service here. Good luck with your future endeavors. And the fact that they're keeping him there for no other reason. Don't pretend like they got some plans for him on the main roster. They don't. And even if they did, they'd suck. So to keep him around just so he can't go somewhere where somebody actually might care about him is a pretty fucking shitty thing to do, especially when you're releasing batches upon patches of talent every couple of months. So, and Ali is the same thing. They kept him off of TV forever. Would it have hurt them at all to release him? No. So why did they not release him? Because they're mad that he was arguing with Vince or something? That's fucking stupid. And now he's back on TV doing the deal with Austin Theory. Who knows? He might actually win that United States title from Austin Theory. But even if he does, I don't think in the grand scheme of things it's going to mean anything for the career of Ali in WWE. So if you're willing to release so many people and a lot of people that are in the middle of angles and stuff, what's the fucking difference if you let Ali and Roderick Strong go? So I think for myself and for a lot of fans, I think these releases would be a lot easier to swallow if WWE basically adopted the policy of, if somebody doesn't want to work here, we're going to let them go. Obviously, some exceptions are going to have to be made there. They're not going to let Roman go or RK Bro or any sort of major talent. But if you're not using somebody and you've got somebody that's definitely a bottom tier or second half of the tier guy or 24/7 title chaser type of talent. I'm not saying Ali is that. It's just they haven't used him in so long. He's not very visible at the top of the card. If somebody who's not going to make any sort of a difference in WWE's business one way or the other asked for their release, I believe the company should give it to them. At least that would help justify a little bit some of these releases. But these releases are really ridiculous when you see some of the people they're keeping around just for spite. They are willing to spend money to keep them away from, or if they're willing to spend money to stop them from advancing their career somewhere else. And nobody's saying Ali would go to AEW and become champion. Nobody's saying Roderick Strong would go to AEW and become world champion. This idea that everybody has to be world champion, I don't know who's saying that. It's certainly not me. I believe that if Roderick or Ali or both go to AEW. Neither one will ever be AEW champion. That is not on my radar for either guy. But I definitely think they can do interesting things there, have great matches there, and who knows, could get over enough, like in a Daniel or a Daniel Bryan type of way in WWE, where the fans basically demand that they give that person the world title or an opportunity. But anything shy of that, I don't think anybody's thinking that these people should leave WWE and go to AEW to be world champion. They only have one belt over there. Not everybody can be world champion, but I definitely think you can be used and utilized better and put in a position where you can give the fans some outstanding in-ring matches. And that's what I would like to see from Ali and Roderick Strong, because they're not doing shit in WWE. I have no interest in anything Ali's doing on TV right now. I think WWE's just getting their money's worth out of him and putting them on TV so they don't look like hypocrites. I think it's more, I think they have more ulterior motives with Ali being featured on TV lately than them actually caring about him. So my opinion is if somebody wants to go, WWE needs to let them go. It's ridiculous why they won't. You know what I mean? So anyway, we missed all those releases last week too, so that's the latest there. And before I wrap up the news here and go back and talk about Sonny, I will go knock out these super chats. I didn't see this. What does this say? Nice Twitter battle between Tammy Sytch and Don Tony. Is Tammy Sytch on Twitter? We're about to talk about Tammy here in a second because she has been released on bond, if you can believe that. So, yeah, that's the deal with the releases there. I want to also go over here and answer this other one because I thought it had to do with the releases. Oh, no. Okay, Nikita, I'm going to hit you later on when we talk about AEW. I was thinking that was something about the releases. Good to see Just Alex in the house as well. I think you guys saw your name come across the chat there. Right on. Okay, we're all caught up in the chat for now. But Nikita, I'll be back to that because we're going to be talking AEW here in just a couple of minutes. But just to backtrack on the news a bit, we have to go all the way back to, of course, our friend Sonny, a.k.a. Tammy Sytch. Of course, last month on April 6th, she was involved in a fatal car accident that took the life of Julian Lassiter, 75-year-old man. And this all took place at 8 p.m. at night. Sonny crashed into a stopped car at a stoplight. That car then hit the car in front of it. And the passenger in the car, or the driver of the car that Sonny hit, was killed in this accident. Now, when this was announced, we found out, I believe, 2 weeks after this accident took place is when we found out about it. So we talked about it here on the podcast. And at this time, Sonny was only being suspected of driving under the influence. The toxicology reports were pending. They hadn't come back yet. And as of then, or at least as of that day, Sonny was out of jail. She wasn't arrested on anything. She was at home basically awaiting the results of this toxicology report to see if she was going to be charged with anything. And I was pretty damn pissed about that on the podcast because I said, I can guarantee you, I don't need to sit here and wait for a toxicology report. We all know Sonny. We all know who Sonny is. She was absolutely under the influence at the time of that car accident. It was 8:30 at night. She smashed into a stopped car. What other fucking explanation is there? You know, Sonny has had multiple DUI arrests. She is constantly under the influence, and she continues to get behind the wheel and drive with no license, no insurance, suspended license, no registration, everything in the book. She has nothing. She has zero privileges when it comes to driving, yet she drives all the time. And sure enough, as we said, after each and every one of her DUI arrests, I said sooner or later, she's going to take the life of an innocent person or innocent people. And sure enough, as we predicted, eventually that did in fact happen on April 6th, and a man lost his life due to Sonny. However, she is still walking around free during this time because the toxicology report hasn't come back, and that to me blew my mind. I believe that she should have been locked up right away just based on how many previous offenses she has. And the fact that night that she was obviously driving without a suspended with a suspended license or driving with a revoked license, whatever it was, why not was she not thrown behind bars right then? I guess she just bonded or bailed herself out and has been sitting around waiting for the hammer to fall here. Well, yesterday, apparently, she was officially arrested and charged with 9 counts basically just charged with 9 counts in connection with the death of Julian Lasseter on April 6th. Now, the 9 counts consist of course, which we would knew this one would be the top one, DUI manslaughter. Also, driving with a suspended or revoked license, causing death or serious injury, and 7 other counts of DUI causing damage to a person or property, for a total of 9 charges in this one incident alone that's in Florida. You can add this to the 11 pending charges that she currently has in the state of New Jersey, for a grand total of 20, count them, 20 pending charges across 2 states, including multiple DUIs, multiple suspended license charges, and of course, DUI manslaughter. Now, apparently, the manslaughter charge could face a maximum of 30 years. To be honest with you, I'm surprised it's that low. And apparently, she's probably looking at a minimum of 4 years in jail here. However, when you think about how many DUI she's had, if you have a judge that's looking at her multiple DUI arrests and then sees this fatal accident take place after all of these DUI arrests, how in the world is this judge going to give her anything less than the maximum possible sentence? And if any judge does do this, that's just a pretty good illustration of how corrupt this fucking system is. And the fact that all it takes is the right amount of money and the right lawyer, and you can literally get out of anything. Now, if that's not infuriating enough, you'll love this. She's already out. She bonded herself out today. That fucking bitch is walking around free right now, while she awaits trial or whatever's going to take place here for these charges that is obviously going to land her in jail. I don't see how she's going to avoid any sort of serious major jail time, unless she is so delusional or her lawyers are assuring her, oh, don't worry, stay positive, we can probably minimize this or whatever. But if she has some sort of, if she's looking at this from a reality standpoint, somebody leveled with her, maybe her lawyers, and she knows for a fact that she's going to be going to jail when all of this is over, I am terrified for what she might do between now and then, especially if she knows she's fucked. It's one thing to hurt yourself, which I wouldn't rule out either, because Sonny's a coward. It's one thing to hurt yourself, which I, also am very worried that could happen, especially if Sonny's like, I'm going to go to jail for 30 years. Maybe I'll think of another way out. And that would make sense because of the coward she is. But even more importantly than that, she still has the ability to hurt somebody else right now as we speak. She could be behind the wheel of a car right this very minute as we're talking right now. Think about that. So if you live anywhere near Sonny, beware. You've been warned, keep your eyes peeled. I'm blown away that she's allowed out based on her rap sheet, based on her previous arrests. Maybe in one state they don't look at what's going on in the other state. I don't know. Maybe Florida just sees what she did in Florida. But if they're aware of all the other fucked up shit she's done, the stalking, the DUIs, the public intoxications, the assaults, everything that she's done, her life is just one big, gigantic fucking dumpster fire filled with burning tires and cow shit. How anybody can look at all of those things that she's done and say, okay, you're free to go. And if she turns out to hurt somebody else, I think some of these law enforcement people should be held liable for that too, just for letting her go. Even her lawyer, that's irresponsible. Even her lawyer, who, you would think would care about her on some level, maybe being in jail is what's best for her. And Sonny too, it always feels like she has no remorse. And who knows what her state of mind here is. I don't know what you guys were talking about the Twitter war. I wasn't even aware Tammy was on Twitter. But every time she's spoken about her legal troubles or her jail time, I don't know what shoot interview it was. It was probably one of those ones with Sean Oliver, one of those kayfabe commentary ones. And she talked about her time in jail and was almost like, oh yeah, the guards just give me whatever I want, she had all sorts of special treatment there, because, prison guards are also prone to corruption because they don't make a very good living. And a lot of the times those guys are, big and gross and horny. So it probably doesn't take much for Sunny to convince them to get her something that she might want. But the way she talks about it, it's zero remorse for anything that she's done. Zero remorse for the lives that she put in danger. And this is all before she killed someone. And just the way she would talk about all of her legal troubles, almost in a bragging way. Yeah, I got in trouble, but boy, I was like the queen in prison. I'm like, something you think is fun to talk about? That's something that you're proud of to share with the world? I'd be embarrassed as fuck if I had a rap sheet like that. My God. So I almost fear that right now Sunny is walking around in her world of delusion because she knows she can just go on OnlyFans and make $100,000 by showing her fat, disgusting titties to a bunch of horny pervs all over the place and then make a bunch of money. She does not live in reality. So I am very fearful that she's out there driving around right now, living her life, actually thinking that she might not spend any time in jail and her lawyers are going to get her out of this shit. Does she have any remorse whatsoever for the man that she killed? Has she sat up late at night and cried her eyes out because she feels so bad for taking the life? She feels so much remorse for putting the family through the pain that she put them through. I guarantee you she never spent one night doing that. She doesn't give a fuck about anybody except herself. That's the way she's always come off. In every interview she's ever said, I've never seen her express one iota of remorse or sympathy or regret for anything she's ever done. If anything, she brags about this shit. And if by some miracle, she's able to escape any sort of serious charges here, and let's just say she spends 5 years in jail and gets out, I can see her doing a shoot interview where she is just talking about how smart her lawyer was and getting her out of all this shit and not even once, expressing any sorrow for what she did. I could be wrong there. Maybe she feels very bad. We don't know. At least I haven't seen any comments from Sunny. Maybe you guys have. But this woman is a piece of shit, and this woman should not be allowed to function in society at all, and certainly should not be allowed to be walking around free right now after obviously clearly taking the life of another man while you're intoxicated. What is there to figure out here in court? What do you really need to prove this here? We all know she did it. The toxicology report is going to show what it shows. There's no way to basically convince any sort of a jury or a judge, I don't think, beyond a reasonable doubt that she did not do these things. So I hope they throw the book at her. I hope that whatever the worst possible sentence you can get, I hope she gets that. It doesn't sound like it can be any worse than 30 years. But if she is sentenced to anything less than 30 years, that's going to be a travesty. Especially when you think about how fucked up the legal system is in general. How many low-level, dime bag, pot-dealing drug dealers are in jail right now for 50 years because of these mandatory minimum sentences for the stupidest fucking offenses. You've got non-violent people that sold some weed that are going to be in jail longer than Sunny. America. What a place. So I don't know what this bag of shit is doing right now. Hopefully she's not driving a car. Hopefully she's not ruining any more lives between now and when she goes to trial or when she faces the music for these charges. To me, this sounds like something that wouldn't even be a trial. Now that she's been charged with all these counts, there's going to be some pleas here, I would assume. Again, I'm no lawyer. But if I'm Sunny's lawyer, I'm going to be like, girl, you fucked. Best you can do is plea. Maybe we can get you 10 years. Maybe we can get you 5. Maybe we can get you between 5 and 10. But that's almost a travesty as well, that she's going to go to jail for 10 years and, come out. Maybe by then she'll be rehabilitated, but it'll be too late for me to forgive her because she's taking the life of somebody else. If you want to fuck yourself up and then rehabilitate yourself, I'm going to stand by you. But once you take the life of somebody else, you are dead to me. You are deader than the person you killed to me. So Sunny can go fuck herself. And I wish the absolute worst for her. I do. I truly, absolutely do. So frustrating. She's out. She's out, y'all. So anyway, we'll keep our eye on the Sunny situation whenever she does face the music for this stuff and whenever she is officially convicted or not of any of these charges. And then, of course, after that comes sentencing. I hope it's bad. I hope it's real bad for Sunny. She deserves to be cold, freezing cold every night for multiple years, eating the shittiest, nastiest food a human can even imagine. That's what I want for her for at least the next 30 years. But we'll see if I get what I want. Probably will not. Also, back to some good news now. AEW Forbidden Door coming up at the end of June. AEW New Japan Big Super Show in the United Center sold out in 40 minutes, which is no surprise. Everybody knew that was going to sell out nearly instantly. Of course, you have the yeah, but fans out there, which no matter what kind of feat AEW accomplishes, they've already had $1 million gate. They've sold out the United Center twice. They've put 20,000 people in an arena more than three times or more now, and this has all taken place within 3 years. And you have people acting like this is some Bush League company, that Alfred fuckface guy that WWE pays to, get this fast nationals out to us and to trash talk everything AEW does, and seems to really be fixated on the male audience for some reason. I have no idea why that is, but he just will not shut the fuck up about the male audience and the male niche. And he had said before the tickets went on sale that, AEW and New Japan, they're going to have to do a lot to sell out the United Center because the market for that type of wrestling is really small. It's just a niche within a niche, and it's only male fans. I'm like, huh? I'm like, we've already seen AEW has done tremendous with ticket sales. Arthur Ashe, United Center, all their pay-per-views do very well. Why all of a sudden do you think they're going to struggle to sell this shit out when they're actually doing a joint show with New Japan? New Japan and Ring of Honor sold out Madison Square Garden. What in the world makes you think the same thing won't happen here? And it's probably going to happen on even a much bigger scale, and it did. Sold this shit out in 40 minutes. So then, once they did that, then all the people who are angry about the sellout, they have to find something else. Okay. Oh, well, it's the scalpers. The scalpers buy all the tickets up. Yeah, I know, and it sucks. The scalpers do that for every show and every concert and every ball game and everything ever, all the time, always. This is nothing new. To use the scalpers, well, they didn't really sell that many tickets. The scalpers all bought them up. Well, then you know what that means? They're going to buy them twice. Full disclosure, I got to admit, I did that for Double or Nothing. I actually have 2 tickets for Double or Nothing if anybody's interested. They're in the upper level, $100 each. DM me if interested, and I will sell them to you. But when I got my seats, I decided I wanted to go on StubHub and get some better seats. So I did, and I paid StubHub prices for my Double or Nothing seats so I can be a little bit closer to the action. I will admit with everybody that scalpers ruin a lot, and there's no way to stop it. There's really no way to police it or stop it. They can just buy up all the tickets and resell them all. So that is a stupid thing to point out when it comes to selling out. Well, it's all scalpers. I'm like, yeah, then the scalpers are just going to sell them to a fan, which means the tickets are going to essentially sell twice. So really, you're going to put more than 20,000 people in the United Center. You're probably going to sell 40,000 seats when you think about the scalpers buying the tickets and then selling them to somebody else. And that really sucks because the money doesn't go to AEW or the promotion running the event. It goes in the pockets of the scalpers, which does fucking suck. And I would love more than anything to figure out a way to curb this or try to police this somehow, but there's just really no way to. So the scalper thing is just such a sad, pathetic excuse because it's something that exists at WWE shows. It's something that exists everywhere in every form of entertainment, no matter what you're doing. Scalpers, that's their job. They spend their whole life buying up tickets and reselling them. That's what they do. So using that as an excuse why the show sold out, to me cracks me up because it's so incredibly transparent. Because what it must be like to have that much like childish, petulant hate in your heart that you're literally willing to say anything to push your butthurt agenda, that you're just mad that a company that for some reason, probably thanks to Jim Cornette because you can't think for yourself, so you just take everybody else's opinions and adopt them as your own. He's convinced you to hate AEW, so now you're willing to say anything to push that narrative. And it's crazy because it's so ridiculous how people can jump on shit. Oh, yeah, they might be able to sell out the United Center, but they're still a Bush League company. You're like, man, this has got to be all young people, because if they were around during ECW and WCW and WWE and all three of these companies competing at the same time, they would see how truly successful AEW really is with some of these shows they've been able to pull off, the fans they've been able to bring in, and even, TV ratings. Wrestling is just down in general from 20 years ago. A lot of people like to compare wrestling numbers now to then. Number one, these are two very different times. Wrestling ratings were through the roof back then, but also go back to the Attitude Era. Go back to the year 2000, 98, 99, 2000, 2001, when shit was really on fire. Imagine if we had Peacock back then. The television ratings would be a lot lower because a lot of people would just be watching on YouTube or watching replays or DVRing. I shouldn't have said Peacock. I should have said, like DVR and shit like that. Wrestling fans just watch wrestling differently. Some of them do watch it on the internet, pull up illegal streams. Some people just watch the highlights on YouTube. If you had all of that stuff accessible to you back then as well, you'd probably see the TV numbers dip. What I like to do is just compare the wrestling numbers to the wrestling numbers in general. AEW is not WWE in 1998, but if you saw the ratings this past week, Raw did a 1.5, and AEW did 800,000. Week before that, they did 1 million. So when you got Raw doing 1.5s, 1.6s, and you've got AEW doing 900,000 or 1 million, those ratings are really not that out of balance, when you think about it. So AEW, I think when it comes to WWE, a company that I've said time and time again has a 57-year head start on them. I think AEW's numbers are pretty damn good considering how popular wrestling is at the moment, which is not that much. Wrestling fans, the diehards, we all still love it. But in terms of attracting outside viewers and a more casual audience who watches the NWO or watches Steve Austin and says, oh, that's fucking good, I like that even though I'm not a wrestling fan, I think the numbers are pretty comparable. And you can still get big arenas sold out, packed with wrestling fans. Look at the last time they sold out the United Center when CM Punk came back. Don't you think that scalper shit that everybody's complaining about happened there too? Scalpers bought up all those seats. It didn't look like it. That wasn't a scalper crying his eyes out in the audience when CM Punk came back. That was a wrestling fan. Whether or not scalpers buy tickets, that United Center that night was packed with 20,000 wrestling fans. And it'll be the same thing for the Forbidden Door. It'll be the same thing in Vegas when I go there for Double or Nothing. So that was such a flimsy, shitty, pathetic excuse, it made me laugh. Imagine getting mad that we have a wrestling company here in North America that is capable of putting 20,000 seats or 20,000 butts in seats, and that company's name is not WWE. Define that as anything other than awesome is fucking nuts. So grow up, you haters, because you look like idiots. Speaking of AEW, there's also been some reports that they're going to get a new show. I think this is going to be on TNT or TBS. Fightful had reported that Warner Media had sent out an email asking people for help on naming the new show. And I guess it's going to be kind of like a behind-the-scenes type of show, kind of like Roads to the Top maybe, with a lot of locker room footage and post-match stuff and things like that. So that looks kind of good. I mean, we all like that stuff. We like the behind-the-scenes stuff. The WWE 24s they do are great. I love being the elite. I haven't watched much of Roads to the Top, but I have a feeling this new show might be kind of what Roads to the Top was since Cody is now gone. But that should be really interesting to see when that comes out and, if it's going to be a weekly deal or how that's actually going to be run. But new AEW show in the works. Also, AEW is, and we've been seeing this on TV, it's been pretty obvious, but apparently it's official. They are going to be bringing in a trios title. Dave Meltzer is saying that the trios belts have already been manufactured and they're ready to go. They just haven't debuted them yet. Not sure what they're waiting for. Probably for Kenny Omega to come back. But we've seen the Blackpool Combat Club. We've got House of Black. We've got Death Triangle. You're starting to see these trios form. You can probably have a couple of different trios in the Undisputed Elite. And especially if Roderick Strong were to come in and link up with O'Reilly and Fish, that would be fun. You could always put Cole with those guys, put Kenny with the Bucks. There is a lot of potential for a trios division, and I think that can be a lot of fun. I was never a huge fan of it in WCW. I remember not liking the six-man titles. I thought it was too much, but at the same time, when you look at AEW, it's also a great way to make use of a lot of your talent. you only have 3 hours of, new cable TV content per week. So there's a lot of people when they come in, that can get lost in the shuffle a little bit. And if you have a trios division, that's a good way to keep a lot of them busy. The trios division is going to occupy a lot of good names like Bryan Danielson and Moxley and Malachi Black and Buddy Matthews and Pac, guys like that. And I think it can be a lot of fun, especially the way you can see some of these alliances and these teams being built up right now in AEW. That's going to be some fun shit. I'm actually open and excited to see a trios championship in the company because it's something that I haven't really experienced as a fan since like the late 80s or 90s when WCW was doing it. So that should be fun down the road. There is also the big story that Tessa Blanchard apparently has had a falling out with WOW, with Women of Wrestling, who have been gearing up for a relaunch of the brand with AJ Lee is one of the executives there. I think Jeannie Buss owns this, and the entire promotion was basically supposed to be a showcase of Tessa. It was supposed to be her own vanity promotion. She was going to be the Yolanda Blaze, and she was just going to be running through talent, I guess. It was going to be so centered around her. I believe she was also going to be one of the trainers working with the younger talent, probably also has an executive producer credit on there as well. And apparently, according to Fightful Select, there was some sort of a big falling out there, and Tessa has burned yet another bridge. And without knowing the details here, this fucking cracks me up. Because what is this woman's problem? How toxic must this woman be that she's burned every single avenue she has in wrestling where WWE won't touch her? Impact doesn't want anything to do with her anymore, despite her winning their world championship. AEW is not bringing her in, despite her dad being there. So she creates her own promotion to basically just showcase herself, and she can't even get along with them. So if you can't even get along with a promotion that is basically just designed to showcase you, I don't think you really belong in wrestling. And that is a pretty funny development with Tessa Blanchard and Women of Wrestling, because how do you burn that bridge? The bridge hasn't even been built yet, and she's burning it. Way to go, Tessa. Again, like I said, we're not deep diving a lot of this stuff today because we're so behind on the news. So there's probably way more details going on there, but I find that really funny that she can't seem to get along with anyone. So we'll be looking into more details on that this week to find out what the deal is there with all parties involved. And finally, actually a couple more news tidbits to get into before we move on to some results and Backlash. We should also talk about Big E. Big E provided kind of a discouraging injury update via Twitter. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm so congested. And his Twitter update, I will read you this quote from him. He posted this yesterday, and I quote, For those desirous of an update, my C1 apparently isn't healing optimally. I'll spend another 4 to 6 weeks in a brace in hopes that I can avoid a fusion. But don't you fret. I've got a tremendous support system, and what shall be, shall be. Big E, ever the optimist. He is so ridiculously positive. I think if everybody had 10% of the positivity in their hearts that Big E has in his, we'd have no wars in this world. I truly mean that. That's a really bummer of an update there. Looks like fusion is not for sure yet. They want him to stay in there another month and a half in the neck brace to see how things go. If things don't heal properly, then it does look like fusion will need to happen. Now, in terms of this fusion compared to other ones, I know Austin and Lita and Edge, I think they all had that fusion done, right? So I know that it is possible to wrestle without it, but I also know there's different types. And originally when Big E was injured, he did say in one of his first updates that surgery was not going to be needed, and that was good because if surgery was needed, that might be curtains on his wrestling career. So I could be talking way out of line here. I don't know the specifics. I don't know if what he is trying to tell us is that if things don't heal properly and fusion is needed, that his wrestling career is over. I really hope that's not the case. But we will see. We've seen things happen like that before. A lot of young talent have had to call it quits early due to stuff like this. Tyson Kidd and Jason Jordan, and whether it's concussions or neck, that part of the body is very, very fragile. So We love Big E here on this channel. We wish him nothing but the best, really hoping that he will heal up. The universe needs more Big E's. Wrestling needs more Big E's. And if a guy like Big E is taken away from us early due to something like this, that's one kick in the balls that wrestling fans just do not need. And wrestling doesn't need in general, because Big E is a credit to the business. He's amazing and one of my favorites, in the entire world. So best of luck to Big E, really holding out hope that things go well and heal properly for him, and that fusion surgery is not needed. But if it is, maybe it's something that he can also still recover from. Just don't know, because I kind of forgot to go to medical school. I was going to, and then I got busy, sidetracked. I had to go run some errands that day and forgot to go. So I don't know shit about operating on necks, but didn't sound too good, kind of the way he worded things there. So best of luck to Big E. Also want to briefly mention Dark Side of the Ring. It was reported this week that Dark Side of the Ring Season 4 would not be happening, and the series in general has been canceled. And this was following last season's pretty controversial episode of The Plane Ride from Hell. It did not get... It was basically just didn't get as good of reviews as they were hoping, due to some people felt it was a little bit biased, that they really focused on Ric Flair and maybe not some other people. Ric Flair came off like a completely dirty piece of shit in that, which we kind of already knew he was, but they did omit to mention a lot of things that happened on that flight as well. Jim Ross has gone on record to say that he won't return to Dark Side of the Ring because of how he was portrayed in that episode, feeling that his words were taken out of context a bit. And, it was just a lot of blowback, a lot of backlash from that episode that I think rubbed certain people the wrong way. I know David Bixenspan was brought on to be a researcher for last season. A lot of people are putting the blame on him for some reason. But once this report came out, Vice immediately responded and said that they are committed as ever to the Dark Side of the Ring series, and even asked the fans who they would like to see profiled in Season 4. So it looks like this actually might still be a thing. Dark Side of the Ring might not be canceled, and it will be brought back for a 4th season. I really like the idea on a Territories episode. Somebody had mentioned that. That could be a whole season, but in terms of some of the dark stories you could tell there, you could focus on just one, maybe like Fritz, or you could focus on a lot and just kind of touch on some of the unsavory things that went on across the board on all of them. Even with AWA and NWA in Florida, because, there's some darkness there with Eddie Graham and a lot of other promoters that, kind of had some gnarly stories to tell. So that would be a great episode. I also think an episode on Jerry the King Lawler would be good, but that's going to be a tough one to pull off because he's still under contract in his Legends deal to WWE. I don't think WWE is going to allow anybody from their company to go talk about what a shitbag Lawler is. So if they do an episode on Lawler, that's going to be interesting, because who's going to participate in that and who's going to throw Lawler under the bus, because he's fucking dirty too. And I don't like Jerry Lawler at all. And I would love for him to get exposed for the disgusting asshole that he is. But I don't know how they're going to be able to pull that episode off. We will see. So it's a little bit up in the air with Dark Side of the Ring. We don't know if it's canceled or not. Vice says it's not. So if it's not, they should start filming and producing some episodes soon, you would think. So we'll keep our eye on that as well. That should wrap it up for my news notes. Like I said, there was a lot to catch up on there from the past couple of weeks. We are going to get into a little bit of this week's TV shows before I start predicting Backlash for tomorrow. Yeah, we still got a good amount of things to talk about here in my notes. So before we get into that, let me cruise over here to the chat. Do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button if you don't mind. If you're a subscriber, please, or if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. And if you are a subscriber, please stay subscribed. Yeah, that sounds about right. Let me cruise over to the chat, because I know I owe you guys some super chat answers. And there might be some other interesting stuff in here as well. Let me see. Where was that one I missed from Nikita? There you are, my friend. Thank you so much for that $10. I appreciate that. Hey, Greg, finished my shift in a bar. Good for you, man. Wish BCC start doing something significant. I can get establishing dominance, but the group of Mox, Bryan Danielson, and Regal does not need to do it. what is the plan for them? Well, the plan for them is probably to win those trios titles, but I'm loving what they're doing. I think it's an excellent use of these guys for right now. Is you got to remember it's crowded at the top. So you don't want to do what WWE does, where you put every single title contender in a big 6-person fucking match and do that. There's times you can do that, but you can't do that all the time. So I think basically what you're talking about is more of you're looking at Mox and Danielson as such mega stars. Why are they in a tag team with William Regal taking on what, people in basically enhancement matches? But you're right about part of that. A lot of it is to establish their dominance, but I'm loving the vignettes. Have you seen those little vignettes they've been doing with Regal? This is who Regal should be. What I'm so happy about in terms of the Blackpool Combat Club is that we're getting Regal the way Regal should have always been. And the way he is discussing his love for the violence, and the rigid training that they're going through, I thought has been really well done and really well presented to the fans, and I'm loving it. So I have no issue with them. I think a lot of fans think that if somebody's not doing something major and at the top and these 3 guys aren't coming out and attacking Hangman Page, or the company's not doing anything with him, I don't think that's that at all. I think that especially a guy like Danielson, this is exactly what he came there to do. I think Danielson purposely wanted to come there and wrestle, work with young guys, have matches with people he hasn't had before, go work in New Japan or go do a spot over there. He's definitely going to be a part of the Forbidden Door because Brian Danielson, is a wrestler and he loves this type of shit. And I think he's doing exactly what he wants over there. I think Danielson's extremely happy with the direction of not only himself, but the Combat Club in general. And I think, like I said, they're gearing up to be major contenders and probably winners of those trios titles along with Wheeler Yuta. But I think eventually they will be involved in, something pretty major, but they're still in that establishing dominance, role right now. But I don't have much of an issue with it, but I can understand though, like kind of where you're coming from. Like I get it. I just am okay with it. You know what I'm saying? God. I am such a mess. What's up, Divine Ricks? Good to see you here as well. Just Alex, lock her up. I hear you, my friend. Lock her ass up. Forever. Spaz Phoenix, good to see you, man. Appreciate that $10 and welcome back. Cheers, Greg and the cat and the chat. Come on over to my show for Dynamite review, Under Siege preview, Backlash preview, and a retro NXT TakeOver Revival review. Hope everyone's killing it this weekend. I'm trying to kill it. I got to go to work next, and then I'm going to be killing it tomorrow for Backlash. But thank you so much for that, Spaz. Shoot over to Spaz Phoenix's YouTube channel. Show him some love and check out that Dynamite review and the Under Siege preview, which should be coming up here in just a few minutes once we sign off of the podcast. Those of you Impact fans are going to be checking out that. Would I think Rumble going back to the Alamo Dome next year is too much? Not too much. I just don't know if that's a venue that's on the radar for that. I don't know. Lacey, yeah, I'm going to talk about Lacey just in just a second here because that was a little bit weird what they did with her last night. Oh, yeah, I don't know, Matos 1489. Lacey said she wants the SmackDown Women's title. I can see WWE just thrusting her right into that. She should have to face a heel, I think, but I also think Ronda could go heel after she beats Charlotte tomorrow. And if you do want to establish a women's wrestler as a badass, they've been doing that with the vignettes with Lacey, talking about her, time in the military and the gnarly upbringing she had and how tough she is. She puts down Ronda Rousey. I could actually see that happening, in the long run, but we will talk about it here soon. Anyway, let's get into just briefly last week's Dynamite. Dynamite pulled in a rating of 833,000.32 in the share. So Dynamite and Raw were both down a bit, but there's a lot of playoffs and shit going on. So both shows kind of have an excuse for the small dip. I think both of them, feels like they both dipped about the same percentage. Both were just slightly down. Dynamite this week, however, like I said, 833,000 .32 in the share. The venue was fantastic. I believe they were in Baltimore, right? And a lot of fans were commenting on how good the building looked. And we've talked about this with AEW before, especially when they first started running shows, is as a wrestling fan, I much prefer the smaller venues to the big ones because they feel more intimate and they look so much better. And on Wednesday, the arena they were in Baltimore was really well lit. A lot of times Dynamites can be a little darker. This one was well lit and it was full. And if you give me like a smaller arena, like a 5,000 to 10,000 seat arena that's well lit and completely sold out, I will take that any day of the week over booking a large arena where you're tarping off the entire top level and half of the second level. And, you know, you've got everything so concentrated in one little part of the building and it looks like shit on TV where, you know, if you just run a smaller venue, you can light it up, just get a 10,000 seat place and run your shows there. I wish WWE would do more of this. AEW does it a lot, but WWE already has relationships in place with all these big arenas all around the country. They're just on tour. They just go around and hit them, you know, one by one, regardless of how full they make the buildings. So seeing AEW kind of have a little bit more of a philosophy on this stuff and the arenas they run, I think looks way better for TV. And I really wish WWE would do the same thing because I think it could look great for them as well if they had a full building that's just, you know, the fans can just be more into it then. It's way more fun. And I thought the building looked awesome on Wednesday for Dynamite. Now, some of the notable moments of the night, and probably my favorite moment of the night, maybe even my favorite moment of the week, was W. Morrissey getting a match on Dynamite against Wardlow. MJF teased this last week that he's got a 7-footer coming, and you can't teach that, so we knew who it was. And everything that Big Cass has been through since leaving WWE, he was in some dark places. He had that seizure, you know, that was kind of related to his alcohol abuse and his alcoholism. And I know he was, I think, even into the pills a little bit there for a while and found himself struggling. And to his credit, has really worked hard to bring himself back. He is in incredible shape. I don't know what he's done, but, you know, when he was in WWE, I always thought he was a good-looking guy. I always thought he looked like a 7-foot Edge. He kind of has that, like, Edge face to me. But now that he's, like, shredded, and you take into consideration his height, I think he looks better now than he ever has. He almost looks more intimidating than Wardlow. I was actually surprised they were bringing him in to face Wardlow because he is so big, but it was really a way just to make Wardlow even stronger. And Morrissey, it certainly wasn't a squash. You know, Morrissey had his share of offense on Wardlow as well. And in the end, of course, Wardlow would win. But just to see Morrissey there, how good he looked, I was happy for him. You know, you like to see that because he was a guy that wasn't really well liked that much either, kind of a little bit having a reputation, sort of, you know, and had all of his struggles and dealt with all of that and has come out on the other side of that to where now wrestling companies are taking notice. I did see the report that WWE saw his appearance on Dynamite and are now apparently interested in him. I can see that because they used to have him there. And when you look at who he is now, how good he looks now compared to how he looked when he was there, you know, I can see them wanting to bring him back in. Because he's looks like a WWE wrestler. He's just humongous and has so much size to him and looks like $1,000,000. I was happy to see him on Dynamite. It was great. Of course, Wardlow would beat him. Wardlow, I'm telling you, is on the fucking cusp. I cannot commend AEW enough for their handling of this angle. I thought that Wardlow and MJF facing at Double or Nothing was going to be too far off. They would have to do this on TV prior to Double or Nothing, but then they went in the direction of having Wardlow binded by this contract and MJF throwing obstacle in front of him week after week in order for him to finally get to that match with MJF. And now he's just about there. He beat Morrissey on Wednesday. Security comes out. He beats up all the security. Spears and MJF are on the stage, and he says, I want a match. Give me what I want. So basically, he's asking for two things from MJF. He wants to be released from that contract, and he wants a match with MJF. And MJF basically says that he will do it, but it's going to be with stipulations. And he will announce those stipulations in a contract signing this Wednesday. So this Wednesday, we've got an MJF and Wardlow contract signing set for the show where MJF will reveal whatever type of match they're going to have at Double or Nothing. So you got to imagine that MJF is probably going to be very creative. I hope he is. I think he will be. He might make it, a gauntlet match. Wardlow is going to have to face 6 guys before he gets to MJF. I can't see a situation where MJF just gives him the match one-on-one. It's going to have to be something that's going to be an incredible uphill battle for Wardlow. And the only thing here is AEW has done so well with this whole entire angle because Wardlow's been getting so over with the audience. The crowd was even chanting Wardlow as he was coming to the ring because now he's got to come to the ring in handcuffs and security. It resembles Goldberg a little bit. Now, it's going to be tough to ever recreate how over Goldberg got, but I think AEW is doing a good job of really establishing Wardlow. He seems to be really a great guy. Fans really like him, and I remember when I first saw him, I was like, man, that guy looks great. How did WWE not sign him? The only thing I could think of is that when I say he looks great, that's it. He just looks great and can't do anything else. The guy probably can't wrestle at all. Then he got in the ring and had that cage match with Cody, and I'm like, holy shit, he's really good. And here in every single match he's been featured in, he's been squashing guys, powerbombing the fuck out of them, looking like an absolute unstoppable monster, and MJF is pissing in his pants. They have done everything so well up until this point. It'll be interesting to see how they execute the Double or Nothing match. If the stipulations that MJF, because it ain't going to be one, it's going to be multiple stipulations. If the stips that MJF puts in front of Wardlow are just too insurmountable, then I can see MJF getting the win after Wardlow's got to fight 50 people, and then MJF can cover him and pin him and celebrate. And then Wardlow's still free and clear, and then he comes back and wins a blow-off. I could see that happening, but I also see a guy that's, on the cusp of stardom here. AEW has really created themselves a new star, something that some fans think AEW can't do. Nuh-uh, that's the other company. This one kind of knows how to do it, and they are on the right track here. But you could easily screw it up. There's going to be some fans, if Wardlow loses at Double or Nothing, that's going to think that was the wrong decision. Probably think about it along the same lines as when Triple H beat Goldberg in the Elimination Chamber. Everybody thought that was going to be Goldberg's moment, and Triple H hit him with a sledgehammer, stole the win, and everybody felt like it ruined the whole deal, and Triple H got a ton of fucking heat for that. So if you do something similar with MJF, the fans might think it was the wrong call. It just depends on how it's executed. I'll have to wait until it happens to see it. But if it was up to me, I would have Wardlow just fucking mow down MJF. But that's really not going to happen either because MJF is a future world champion in your company. So I can almost see MJF stealing a win, which maybe then earns him a world title shot. Maybe then he wins the title and Wardlow comes back and beats him for it. But at the same time, when you have a guy like Wardlow, a character like that's, a lot like Goldberg, just an ass-kicking machine, you don't really need to do a slow burn with a guy like that. If you got an ass-kicking machine that nobody can stand a chance against, you don't wait 8 months to put the belt on a guy like that. You just kind of fucking do it. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes, how it's all executed and comes off at Double or Nothing. I'm really interested next week to see what the stipulations are going to be for Wardlow because MJF's going to get nuts with these things. So it depends on what he throws in front of Wardlow. It might just be considered too much because if MJF can basically make any stip he wants, then the sky's the limit. He can come up with literally anything, and he might bring in some more outsiders. He might bring in some more help. Who knows? Who knows? It could be a good place for a debut. Apparently, Claudio has been dressed up as a cameraman for the past couple of weeks. There's been a large hooded figure with a camera at ringside the past couple of Dynamites that people have been pointing out, along with the dude with the box or bag on his head, which a lot of people say is Kip Sabian. So if Claudio or Cesaro turns out to be the cameraman, he might be able to enter the ring, beat up Wardlow, help MJF win. I don't know. It doesn't have to be him. Could be another debut. Could be another return. Where the hell is Miro? Where's Miro? So who knows what they could do here. But if MJF stacks the deck enough against Wardlow, I think an argument can be made that he actually will get the win at Double or Nothing, but we'll have to see. Let me know what you think about that, if you think it's a good idea or not. Also, Hangman Page was back this week. He had to take last week off due to a positive COVID test, and I guess he cut the promo here that he was probably supposed to cut last week. There was no CM Punk on the show tonight or on Wednesday, and Hangman basically went heel in the promo. He said that there's going to be no handshake, no masturbatory Bret Hart tribute match or anything like that. He's going to destroy CM Punk and beat him down, and this is not going to be about respect. So I don't think that this is necessarily him turning heel. I think he's going to be playing the role of a heel maybe in this match, because I think Hangman is still very over with the crowd. I'm not ready to see him full-blown heel yet. I think this is just him, stating his case that he's the champ and Punk stands no chance against him. And at this point, I'm actually thinking Hangman should beat CM Punk, but I may change my mind on that as we get closer to Double or Nothing. But that was a really interesting promo by Hangman. We also had Jeff Hardy defeating Bobby Fish in an Owen Hart qualifier. I'm going to show you the brackets here in just a second. A lot of people were disappointed that Julia Hart didn't turn heel. I agree. I thought for sure little Julia would definitely turn on the Varsity Blondes, but that did not happen. It was all set up. Their backs were turned. She was all there to do a nut shot or something to someone. Even when House of Black came out, it looked like they were setting up for her to turn. They even drug her over and kind of forced her to, hurt Griff Garrison. I think they should have done it to Pillman, not Garrison. And she didn't. So the whole thing was set up there for her to turn heel. They didn't do it. They are really, really slow burning this one. I would have done it on Wednesday. We'll see what they do next week. But Julia Hart continues to be influenced by House of Black. And I think the Triangle would come out there too and run them off later on and help out a little bit. Poor Julia, who's only 20 years old. And I think they probably should have just done it on Wednesday. I don't know why they didn't. Also, we did see Mercedes Martinez defeat Deonna Purrazzo to unify the ROH women's titles, which was another good match on Wednesday. And then, of course, we did get the revealing of the Owen Hart Cup brackets for the men and women. I have them both right here for you. Here's the men's on top and the women's on the bottom. So let's take a look at the men's. Some of these first round matches are awesome, specifically Darby Allin and Jeff Hardy, which we are going to get this Wednesday on Dynamite. Now, this one's interesting to me because I've always said on this channel, since Darby Allin came onto the scene and started aligning himself with Sting, I always thought Darby Allin resembled much more of Jeff Hardy than Sting. The only thing that the only thing that Darby and Sting had in common was the black and white. Sting wasn't a skateboarder. Sting wasn't even a surfer, even though they called him Surfer Sting. So Sting was never really into that daredevil shit that Darby Allin was. But Jeff Hardy damn sure is. Jeff Hardy loves diving off of shit. He does motocross. He likes that type of extreme sports stuff. Plus, he's very decorated in his persona and his ring gear, and he's painted up just like Darby Allin. I thought Darby and Jeff were way more alike than Darby and Sting. So the fact now that Jeff's in AEW and we're getting this match and we're getting it in the opening round of the Owen is pretty awesome. I'm pulling for Darby Allin. I think Jeff Hardy should pass the torch here. I also think it's cool that Jeff Hardy and Sting are kind of interacting a little bit, considering everything that happened with those two guys 10 years ago. And a nice full circle moment for maybe Jeff and Sting. Hell, maybe you even do just for fun. Maybe you do just for fun on Dynamite or Rampage. Maybe you do Jeff Hardy versus Sting. Like, seriously, just something personal for them, maybe for Jeff, to go out there and actually do that match right. These guys are old. It's not like you can have a 5-star classic or anything, but if you were able to do Sting versus Jeff Hardy one-on-one, 10 plus years or whatever it's been after Victory Road. Was it Victory Road that Jeff came out all fucked up? I don't know. It might be a nice moment, just to put it all to bed, sort of, but they could always do that. It might be fun. But we got Adam Cole and Dax Harwood. That's also taking place on Wednesday. That's going to be fun. Ray Phoenix and Kyle O'Reilly, that's badass. I don't even know who I want to win in that one. I might pull for Phoenix in that. That might be a lot of fun. And then, of course, Samoa Joe is taking on a Joker. The Joker could be anybody. The Joker could be somebody that's currently there, like a Satnam Singh, who came out on Rampage last night and did have a little stare down with Joe. It could be him. It could be Miro could come back. It also could be Cesaro or Claudio. Now, if it's Cesaro, I would love that. But that makes me think he should beat Samoa Joe. I kind of think here that Samoa Joe should beat whoever this Joker is, unless the Joker is someone major. Now, if the Joker is a Jay Lethal or someone that's currently there, then Joe wins all the way. But if the Joker is a brand new guy like a Cesaro, then I want Cesaro to win. And I kind of think Cesaro would be a great pick to win the entire tournament because he's the only guy without the last name Hart that knows how to properly apply the sharpshooter. He was winning some matches in WWE with that, right? During the pandemic and stuff. He applies it perfectly and knows how to do it. A lot of wrestlers don't. He does it a hell of a lot better than Sting does, I'll tell you that. But then again, you can make the argument that maybe a brand new guy shouldn't come in and run the table and win a fucking tournament. So based on who is in the field here, I'm going Adam Cole. I'm going Adam Cole right now, unless that Joker turns out to be somebody pretty major. And when you look at the bracket, the finals, we could get Adam Cole and Darby Allin in the semis. Oh my God, that's going to be good. And we could probably get Rey Fenix and maybe Samoa Joe. Kyle O'Reilly and Samoa Joe might also be fun. You could do an elite final. You could do O'Reilly and Adam Cole in the finals. You definitely could do that. And have Cole win. Right? Because didn't O'Reilly beat Cole at the end of their feud, or did that go the opposite way? I don't remember. But I definitely think Adam Cole right now, looking at the field, is the odds-on favorite. In the women's division, or the women's bracket, this looks pretty fun as well. Britt Baker's in the same situation that Joe is in. She's going to be taking on a Joker. I'm hoping that Britt not only makes it to the finals, but wins it. I would kind of maybe think of Britt Baker in this tournament similar to how Bret Hart won the King of the Ring in '93. He just lost the world title. This was his consolation prize. They might do something similar here with Britt Baker, but you also have a chance to really put someone over in your women's division as well. Now, if you have a Joker, maybe it could be Athena, or something like that coming in. But aside from Baker, and with Toni Storm rolling up Britt and getting the win on her, I don't see Toni beating Britt again if they face here in the semifinals. So based on the bracket, I'm going Britt right now for the women. So Adam Cole and Britt Baker are my picks. Oh, wow. That's interesting. Boyfriend, girlfriend is going to win the Owen men's and women's tournaments. They are kind of who are on my radar right now, but I reserve the right to change that. We'll be doing double or nothing predictions in a couple of weeks. Who knows what I'll pick. Next week on Dynamite, we've got Ricky Starks taking on Jungle Boy in an FTW title match. CM Punk taking on John Silver. Of course, we've got that contract signing with MJF and Wardlow. A Jericho Appreciation Society victory speech and 3 Owen Hart tournament matches. Darby versus Jeff, Cole versus Dax Harwood, and Toni Storm versus Jamie Hayter. First rounder taking place on Dynamite next week. We'll run through Rampage last night here briefly. We did get that tag team match. Ruby Soho and Toni Storm defeating Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker. Britt Baker got rolled up and pinned by Toni Storm for the win in that match, which was kind of surprising. Hook defeated JD Drake. Now, this was fun stuff because after Hook disposes of Drake with the Red Rum, out comes Danhausen to a massive pop. He asks Hook to be in his corner this Wednesday on Dynamite because I believe Danhausen, or maybe next week, Danhausen's got to face Tony Nese or something, right? And he makes the mistake of putting his hands on Hook. So Hook, of course, shoves him down. And then Danhausen pulls out a nice little bag of Lay's potato chips because apparently it was Hook's birthday, has a little ribbon on it. And he puts the chips in the ring and leaves. And then Hook picks up the chips and the crowd pops huge. And then he puts down the chips and the crowd boos. They were also chanting Hookhausen during the entire confrontation there. So AEW has done a great job with getting this whole situation over. We might actually see an alliance be born between these two guys, Hook and Danhausen, where it might be an RK Bro situation where Danhausen is going to drive Hook so nuts, but he's going to kind of develop a love for him at the same time. I don't think it's going to do anything to harm Hook's legitimacy or anything like that. Hook is not a very big kid. He's very young and he's very small. So even though he's a badass, I don't think he should be out there just tapping everybody out like Brock Lesnar in every fucking match he has. He's got to do some stuff first, to kind of get his career moving. And this early alliance with Danhausen can be a lot of fun. It's getting over with the audience. And if anybody doesn't like this type of stuff, you're just no fucking fun. And you're probably no fun at parties either. This was great. Loved it. And can't wait to see what they do with Hookhausen in the future. Also, we just looked at the Owen brackets, but you did see Riho there in the opener, or in the first round. She defeated Yuka Sakazaki last night to qualify for that. And then, of course, in the main event, we had a pretty good one here with Jay Lethal taking on Tanosuke. Now I forgot how to say the name. Takashita. I forgot how to say it now. I was saying it like 5 times before I came live here, and now I can't see it. Anywho, Japanese wrestler from DDT Pro Wrestling, super impressive. I think I've seen one match of his or clips of his, but I didn't realize he was as good as he was. That was a really fun match with Jay Lethal last night. Of course, Lethal wins with the lethal injection. Sonjay comes out with, or he's out there with Satnam Singh after the match, and Lethal and Sonjay continue the attack. And best friends come out to make the save. I think Orange Cassidy is out there, but he's injured right now, can't wrestle. And then Satnam Singh gets in the ring, kills both of the best friends. And then Samoa Joe comes out and kind of has a pull apart. So that's why you think that maybe that big 7-footer could be the Joker in the Owen tournament. I hope that he's not, but he could be based on what we saw. So Rampage was a pretty fun little show last night. I did watch it and did like it. However, SmackDown, I didn't really watch at all. Because there's no reason to. It's the go home to Backlash. We knew, on go home shows, you're not going to see any heel turns or new angles started or title changes. It's all just the final setup for the pay-per-view. So I didn't even bother watching SmackDown last night. However, I did see Lacey's Chapter 5. So Lacey has been telling her life story on TV here for the past few weeks. And none of it's pretty. She really did have a rough go of it, but it's still been hard to get behind this story when you know who Lacey Evans was before she got pregnant and left. So now they're trying to sell you on, this woman that was looking down on us, is this pretentious, high-class person who looks down on everybody else and calls us nasty. Now she's just a blue-collar, tough girl who's been through hell, and she fought in the military, and, she's America and all this shit, and it's just not for me, But they're trying to make it very real. Lacey is doing her damnedest to really put her heart and soul into the story she's telling here. She's getting choked up during all of this. And then last night she discussed, her father's overdose death and, another family member that she had to save from an overdose or save from suicide and all sorts of just ugly shit. And then we cut to the ring where Samantha Irvin gets on the mic and says, Lacey has asked for you all to stand and show respect for her. And I'm like, what? This is something a heel would do. And the fans do. They get up and they start showing her respect. She comes out. She is getting visibly emotional and she climbs up on the barricade and salutes the audience. And I'm like, that is weird. I actually thought they were going to do the swerve of all swerves and actually bring her out as a heel. And I don't know what wavelength WWE was on there where they thought maybe the fans were thinking something else. I don't know, but it felt like a very heelish thing to do. So it makes me wonder, are they actually going to turn Lacey Evans heel? Like if you get on the mic prior to a babyface coming out and say, you all need to stand up and show respect for this person coming out. That's what Nikolai Volkov did before he sang the Russian national anthem. Everybody stand up before I start singing this shit. It's just a heel move. So it's just weird. Like, why did they do that? I don't understand why they did that. It's got to mean something. And maybe they are planting the seeds for her to turn heel because maybe the fans won't be very receptive to this character and they already know it. So they're putting things in place to where Lacey can just tell us all to go fuck ourselves once we don't accept her. I don't know. But as somebody brought up here in the chat, if Ronda winds up winning the title tomorrow, which I'm expecting her to, Lacey Evans could be a good opponent for her down the road, especially if you move Ronda Rousey into being a heel, which I think she needs to be because the fans already can't fucking stand her. So if she's a heel, I think most fans would be behind Lacey Evans. And if you want to build Lacey Evans as a really tough woman, which she is, very strong, very tough, and can probably scrap for real and fight for real, you got to think about somebody who would be believable to beat Ronda Rousey, because Ronda Rousey is at one time the baddest woman on the planet and set a lot of UFC records, and she can fight for real. She's a female Brock Lesnar. So you can't put Cora Jade in the ring with Ronda and have her beat her. It's got to be somebody strong, and Lacey fits that. So I can totally see that happening. And Vince, this seems like a character that Vince McMahon specifically would love. because it just reeks of him. He loves that Americana shit. He loves that shit. So I can see this going somewhere, perhaps, even though the whole thing has been awkward. Every one of these chapters has been weird, and then it came off really weird last night where they're coming out to the aisleway there, and the announcer asking for respect and all that. I don't know. It was awfully weird. So we'll see after tomorrow night who comes out of Backlash as women's champion, but I have a feeling it won't be Miss Charlotte Flair. Also want to shout out Cody Rhodes real quick. I did watch this past week's Raw. I thought him and Seth had a pretty good little promo there to set up their Backlash match. But Cody also this week was on record as saying that if he does win the WWE Championship, he would be in favor of bringing back the belt that this podcast is named after, that beauty on the wall right there, the Winged Eagle Championship. And I would love that. Oh my God. Now, it would be so perfect because Cody brought back the Classic IC all those years ago, even though I'm very anti-white strap. I know I'm in a minority there. Everybody loves the white strap except me. I prefer the black. And if Cody brought back the Winged Eagle, I hope it doesn't have the white strap. I hope it would have the black. But it would also be so cool. I like the idea of Cody bringing the actual belt that Dusty took from Superstar Billy Graham in the Garden and having that out there as well. But bringing back the Winged Eagle would be great. Now, one thing I know for sure, if they did bring back the Winged Eagle, it would not be a permanent replacement for the belt. I think it would be Cody's custom title is what I think it would be. Because really, at the end of the day, I still think WWE wants their big, ugly fucking logo front and center on any championship belt. So I don't think they're going to bring back the Winged Eagle title and that will be the belt permanently, but it might be a nice belt for Cody to carry if he does, in fact, become champion down the road. If Roman drops one of his belts and, then Cody wins that or something, I can see that happening. And that way you still have another world title where it's the big WWE logo. But if you're going to bring back the Winged Eagle, it needs to be the WWE title, not the Universal. So Roman will somehow have to lose that WWE title, maybe to Cody, and then Cody the next night on Raw can bring back the Winged Eagle title. Could you imagine Cody with that thing around his waist? He'd look great with it, and he would be my hero if he did that. Even if it brought the title back for a short time, it would still mean so much to me as a fan for that to happen. So I'm really hoping we get that sometime in the next 12 months. That would be really good. But we are running out of time here. I've got just enough time to run through these Backlash predictions for tomorrow. Like I said, there is only 6 matches announced for this show, and I'm not too much looking forward to it, although I do think it has potential. So let's start off with Baron Corbin taking on Madcap Moss. My God, we got so many WrestleMania rematches on this thing. Corbin and Moss, I'll probably go Corbin on this, and then maybe have Moss win a blow-off before these two finally separate. But considering Corbin lost at WrestleMania, I think he'll probably pick up a victory here. And hopefully Madcap can just go back to being Riddick Moss, because I don't think there's anything wrong with just being Riddick Moss either. And maybe this can all be the beginning of that. Once this angle and storyline is over, both of these guys just move on to better shit. But I think Corbin is going to get the victory tomorrow. Lashley versus Omos. I'm going to go Omos on this one. Lashley, of course, won at WrestleMania, and then MVP dumped Lashley for Omos, which I thought made MVP look really stupid. And what would make MVP look even dumber is if Omos lost this match here. So I think Omos is going to win. He'll beat Bobby Lashley, probably with some help from MVP. And that one seems pretty likely to me. Edge taking on AJ Styles. Damian Priest barred from ringside. So what do you do here? Does Edge win with a new member of Judgment Day joining the group, or does AJ win with help from Finn Balor? It's a tough call. Part of me doesn't want Edge to lose right after establishing this new faction and this new persona, but he also won at WrestleMania. So you're going to beat AJ twice. If you do beat AJ again, how can you continue this angle? Unless Edge does debut another member here, and then AJ enlists the help of Balor for them to battle these guys, or it could be Balor himself. I mentioned this last week. People are like, oh no, good mic work. Balor's going to team up with AJ. He wouldn't join Edge's group. Why not? He's a demon. Why not? Why can't he join Edge's group? I don't see any reason why not. So I think that could happen too. And also, Balor doesn't have to join right away. He can go up against them at first and then eventually join. That could also happen as well. But I'm going to go against the grain here. I had Edge written down as my winner, but I'm picking AJ. I'm going to pick AJ Styles, and I think Finn Balor is going to help AJ win because Damian Priest is barred from ringside. I don't think Finn Balor is. So Balor can come out. That, of course, will piss off Edge. He'll bitch about it on Raw. AJ, you won with an unfair advantage. You can never beat me one-on-one, and then you got a reason to run that back for a blow-off. Maybe even do something in the Hell in a Cell coming up. And you can definitely get some good tags out of that, too, on TV with Balor and AJ taking on Priest and Edge. So I'm going to go AJ Styles to get the win over Edge. I know that's crazy, considering Edge has got this brand-new faction, but let's go AJ to pick up the win tomorrow. Cody Rhodes taking on Seth Rollins in another WrestleMania rematch. I don't want to beat Seth again, but Cody, the story that they're doing with him, I don't want to see him beat right now either. But I do think with two pieces of talent as great as these two guys, this thing has to be a minimum of a 3-match program here. So I think Seth Rollins is going to pick up the win tomorrow. Don't know how he's going to do it. I feel like he's probably going to cheat. It could be something just as simple as a nut shot or a low blow, or, maybe Cody has his foot on the ropes and the ref doesn't see it. Something like that, to where Cody lost, but there's room to do a rematch. And then I don't know if you put these guys in the cell necessarily, but you do have that pay-per-view, I believe, coming up next. So that could be a good spot for your blow-off. And then after that, it's Money in the Bank time in Vegas, and one of those two guys could definitely be on our radar to pull down that green briefcase. Then we've got Charlotte versus Ronda Rousey in an I Quit match. You can make the case that this should be the main event. I think it possibly could be, although the 6-man could also be the main event because Roman is the main event. But Roman went on first at the Rumble, which somebody pointed out and corrected me. So you could do the 6-man here first. Who knows? But I have a feeling it's going to come on last because of a possible finish that I mentioned earlier, which means Charlotte and Ronda will be the semi-main. And I got to put Ronda Rousey over here. I think she'll win the I Quit match. I think Charlotte will have to tap out. Charlotte's tapped out before. It's not new. So it's not like we've never seen it or anything like that. I think she will find herself in a situation that she can't get out of. She will tap out. Ronda Rousey will become the new women's champion. And I think shortly after that, Ronda should also turn heel. And that's when they could possibly be building Lacey Evans for Ronda. So I'm going to go Ronda tomorrow night to beat Charlotte for the title, which leaves us with a big 6-man match, Bloodline taking on Drew McIntyre and RK Bro. I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast here that I have one specific finish in mind for this, very similar to International Incident when Vader beat Shawn in that 6-man match to set up their SummerSlam title match. I think Drew McIntyre is going to pin Roman Reigns. I don't think an Uso is going to get pinned. I think Roman's going to get pinned for the first time in over a couple of years. It's a non-title match. It puts a nice feather in the cap of Drew McIntyre as the only guy to really pin Roman in a long time. And now when you inevitably do have the title match between these two, you don't feel like you're doing McIntyre so wrong by having Roman beat him again, because then it would feel a little bit more obvious that Roman's going to hang on to the title. So I think Drew McIntyre and RK Bro will win this match, and I think Drew will pin Roman. Now you can pin an Uso, and the heels will still lose, and then Roman on Friday will blame the Usos and blame whoever got pinned for fucking up. But he can also blame the Usos if he gets pinned, because he'll probably find himself in the ring against all 3 guys with the Usos, being taken care of, and then he will lose, and then he'll be pissed at the Usos for leaving him in the ring alone, and the tribal chief will be very, very angry. So I kind of think the baby faces are going to win. Bloodline's going to go down, and I think it's very, very, very likely that Roman eats a pin. And if he does, I'm just going to plant my flag right now, because I know that's going to create a lot of debating on Twitter. Let me just put my flag in the ground and say I have no problem with Roman eating a pin here at all. I don't like it when champions lose all the time, but I don't mind it if they lose for a reason. A few weeks back when Britt Baker lost, fans were like, oh, champions shouldn't lose. I'm like, no, champions shouldn't lose all the time. Champions shouldn't lose every single week like we see in WWE countless times. But occasionally, sometimes it can be done for a reason. And the Baker match was like that. I think this match can be the same thing. And I think a lot of fans are just pre-programmed to complain about a champion losing when it's not always the wrong thing. So tomorrow, if it happens, I'm going to defend it. And look at there. We are finished up right at the top of the hour. I knew this was going to be a long one, but I got to get out of here and go to work now because they need me at work. I wish I had a little bit more time to hang out and answer some questions in the chat, but I don't. I appreciate you guys all being here today. Please do me a favor and smash that thumbs up button out the door, on your way out the door. Tomorrow, make sure you're here immediately following Backlash. We'll be up here for a full show review. Link to that stream will be posted on my channel later tonight, as well as the audio of this podcast will be up on all the podcast sites and on my website if you'd like to download it. So just keep a lookout for that in the next several hours. By around midnight tonight, all that stuff will be up, and we'll be ready to rock and roll for tomorrow. So thank you so much again for being here. You guys have a good rest of your Saturday and weekend, and we'll see you tomorrow night after Backlash. Hope you guys enjoy